You are here because you felt something. You didn't just read a random title. You didn't click out of boredom. Something within you recognized this moment before your mind even processed it. And I need you to stay until the end, because what I'm going to reveal to you today might be exactly what your spirit has been waiting to hear. You woke up today carrying a weight that has no easy name. It's not sadness. It's not common discouragement. It's that feeling of being on the edge of something, but not being able to see the other side. It's the weariness of someone who has waited a long time, believed with all their might, and yet still found themselves looking at empty hands while watching others receive what you prayed for. But I need to tell you one thing before we continue. You are not here by accident. This meeting was appointed, not by an algorithm, not by coincidence, not by luck. There is an intelligence beyond your understanding that made your finger pause on this video exactly at this moment, on this exact day of your life. And what I have to tell you today is not cheap motivation. It's not an empty promise. It's not that kind of content that excites you for 2 minutes and vanishes like smoke. What I'm going to show you is the reason why the delay you've lived through was not abandonment. It's the reason why the pain you've carried was not punishment. And it's the reason why what is coming for your life carries a signature that heaven took time preparing. Stay with me. This is for you. Let me ask you a direct question. How many times have you come close to giving up? Not in a dramatic way, not a loud giving up. The quiet giving up. The kind that happens inside your chest when you stop talking about your dreams out loud because you got tired of explaining to people who don't understand. The kind that happens when you kneel to pray and the words get stuck in your throat because a part of you no longer knows if it's worth asking. If you are over 35, and I know many of you are, this feeling is all too familiar. Because as the years pass, life accumulates layers. It accumulates the attention you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. Frustration of relationships that didn't work out. It accumulates the weight of children who took paths you didn't choose for them. It accumulates the debt you swore you'd pay off by that date, and the date passed and the debt remained. It accumulates the job that doesn't fulfill you, the body that doesn't respond like it used to, and that constant feeling that time is passing too quickly while the things that matter stay still. You are not weak, you are human. And that is exactly why what I'm going to show you today needs your full attention. Because there is a huge difference between someone who has given up and someone who is exhausted. And the simple fact that you are here watching this video right now tells me you have not given up. Something inside you still believes. Even if it's buried under many layers of disappointment, it is there. And it is that something that heaven is responding to right now. I'm going to tell you about a woman named Sarah. This isn't a fictitious name to decorate the script. It's a real story I received that represents thousands of you. Sarah is 48, lives in Atlanta, raised 3 kids almost single-handedly after a marriage that didn't survive financial pressure and mistakes on both sides. For years, she woke up at 5 in the morning to work, came home late, and still at the end of the month, the money didn't add up. She prayed, she fasted, she went to church with that stubborn faith we maintain, even when it seems foolish to keep it up. And for many years, it seemed like heaven was silent. The bills continued, the loneliness continued, the feeling of invisibility continued. But Sarah didn't know one thing. She didn't know that behind the scenes of her life, things were being moved, connections were being prepared, doors she didn't even know existed were being unlocked. And when the turnaround came, it didn't come as she expected. It wasn't an instant miracle the way she had imagined. It was a series of events that, looking back, she could see were all connected, that every delay had placed her in the right spot to receive what was reserved. Today, Sarah has her own business, a relationship that she describes as the first time she ever truly felt seen, and a peace that she swears is worth more than anything she's accumulated. But you know what she told me when she shared this story? She said, "The moment I almost gave up was when I was closest." That is not coincidence. That is a pattern. And I'm going to explain why this happens in a way that will make sense to both your reason and your spirit. There is a phenomenon psychologists call the transformation threshold. It's the point where a person is so close to a real change that the internal pressure reaches its maximum before breaking through. It's the moment when everything seems harder, heavier, more impossible, precisely because something is about to give way. Think with me. When you are having surgery to remove something that was making you sick, the worst moment isn't before the surgery. It's during the healing process, when the wound is open and the body is working to rebuild. It's in that moment that the pain screams the loudest. But not because it's getting worse, because it's being treated. Spirituality and science converge here in a powerful way. Dr. Joe Dispenza, a neuroscientist who studied human transformation processes for decades, documented that the biggest changes in brain structure happen precisely in the period immediately before the moment a person experiences a life turnaround. The brain is literally working harder, building new neural pathways, dissolving old patterns, and this generates real discomfort, physical and emotional. From a spiritual point of view, the prophet Elijah lived through exactly this. One of the most powerful men of the Old Testament, the one who called down fire from heaven, who faced hundreds of false prophets alone, reached a point where he asked to die under a tree in the desert, exhausted, alone, feeling like he was the only one left, that it was no longer any use. And what did God do? He didn't give a speech. He didn't perform a spectacular miracle. He sent an angel with food and water and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." The journey is too much. He didn't say the journey was over. He said, you need strength to continue because there is still a journey. That changes everything. If you are exhausted today, it's not a sign that you've reached the end. It's a sign that you are in the middle of something bigger than you can see from where you are. Now, I need to talk about something many people don't have the courage to name. The feeling of having been forgotten by God. It's not a lack of faith to admit this, it's honesty. And honesty is the first step for truth, to truly reach you. Because while you pretend you're okay, that your faith is impeccable, that you have no doubts, you create an armor that prevents even grace from entering. Psalm 13 begins with David crying out, "How long, Lord? Will you forget me forever?" A man called a man after God's own heart, the most glorified king in Israel's history, opened his mouth and said, "I'm feeling forgotten." That was recorded in the Bible. Not as an example of weakness to be avoided, as a truth to be validated. You have the right to feel the weight of the delay. You have the right to not understand the silence. And at the same time, God's silence was never absence. It was processing. It was preparation. It was that kind of love that prefers to give you something complete rather than give you something half-finished before its time. Think of that couple who waits for a child for years. Doctors say it's unlikely. They pray, cry, go through painful procedures, endure nights of doubt. And when the child finally arrives, it's not the same experience as for someone who never waited. There is a depth in those parents' love that only those who waited can understand. The delay was not denial, it was formation. What God is forming in you through this period of waiting is something you could not have received before. Not because He wanted to hurt you, but because the vessel needed to have the right shape to hold what was being prepared for you. And here I want to pause for a moment to make you reflect on something that rarely comes up in these conversations: the relationship between the pain you've lived through and the authority you will carry. All genuine spiritual authority is born from suffering that has been traversed. Not from sought-out suffering, not from performative pain, but from real pain that you didn't choose and that you went through anyway. When you come out the other side of something that should have destroyed you and it didn't, you don't come out the same. You come out with something that no school teaches, no book transfers, and no shortcut produces. You come out with the credential of a survivor. And that credential has a weight in the spirit that changes everything. It changes how you pray, because you are no longer asking in theory, you are asking from within the experience. It changes how you speak, because your words carry the weight of what you've lived. It changes how you affect the people around you, because they feel you are not speaking from a place of comfort, you are speaking from within the battle. The pain you went through was not for nothing. It was building a voice, a presence, an authority that you will need for what comes next. Now I'm going to tell you about the signs, because there is a difference between naive hope and spiritual discernment, and many people confuse the two. Naive hope says, something good will happen because I want it to happen. Spiritual discernment says, there are signs in the spirit and in practical life that indicate a real change is in motion. What are these signs? Let me give you the 7 that appear most often before a real-life turnaround. The first is weariness with what was before. When you notice that what used to work to numb you, be it distractions, superficial relationships, empty entertainment, or excessive work, has begun to lose its flavor. When you feel you can no longer be happy with what used to satisfy you, it's not depression, it's expansion. You have grown beyond what you have, and your spirit is refusing to accept less than what was promised. The second sign is the interruption of old patterns. Situations that always repeated in your life suddenly stopped. That toxic relationship you couldn't leave finally ended. That opportunity that always appeared and deceived you hasn't come back. When cycles break, it's not loss, it's release. The third sign is the intensification of prayer and spiritual desire. When you begin to feel a more intense spiritual thirst, when the silence with God begins to weigh differently, when you catch yourself seeking in a way that seems both urgent and deep at the same time, that is not a crisis of faith. It's tuning. You are being calibrated to receive. The fourth sign is the arrival of new people in your life, unexpected connections, someone who appears in a way that has no logical explanation, a conversation that changes the direction of your thinking, a door that opens through an encounter that seemed casual. God rarely operates alone. He uses people, and when the right people start to appear, pay attention. The fifth sign is the return of dreams and desires you had buried. What you wanted when you were younger, before life taught you to lower your expectations, begins to come back with force. Not as nostalgia, but as urgency. When your heart begins to beat for something you thought you had abandoned, heaven is reminding you of what was always yours. The sixth sign is an unexplainable discomfort with your current situation. It's not anxiety, it's not ingratitude, it's a restlessness that doesn't go away, that feeling that you were born for more than you are living. When the place where you are begins to feel too small for who you are becoming, it's because you have already outgrown it. And the seventh sign, perhaps the most powerful of all, the peace that makes no sense. In the midst of situations that should destroy you, an unexplainable calm, not an absence of feeling, but a foundation that doesn't give way. Paul called it the peace that surpasses all understanding. And when you are in the eye of the storm, and somehow you can breathe, that is God telling you that what is on the way will not destroy you. It will define you. If you recognized at least 4 of these signs in your life right now, you are not imagining things. You are on the edge of something, but I need to be honest with you about something most spiritual content doesn't have the courage to say. The change that is coming will require something from you. It's not arriving while you stay exactly where you are, doing exactly what you do, thinking exactly what you think. Heaven does not deliver destiny to someone who is not in motion. Blessing does not fall into the lap of someone lying on their back waiting. There is a biblical principle that many people quote incorrectly. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. The 3 words, ask, seek, and knock, are active verbs. They are actions. There is a progression of intensity there. You ask, but then you seek, and when the seeking meets resistance, you knock. Knocking presupposes the door is closed. It presupposes you have come to it. It presupposes you have the intention to enter. What is the door in your life right now that you need to stop observing from afar and start truly knocking on? For some of you, that door is a relationship that needs courage to be fixed or ended. For others, it's a business, an idea, a skill you know you have, but keep shelving out of fear it won't work out. For many, it's the door of health, of habits you know you need to change and keep postponing until next Monday that never comes. And for some, the door is the most intimate of all, the door of forgiveness. Forgiveness of someone who hurt you in a way that still hurts. Or forgiveness of yourself for mistakes you continue to carry like chains. I need you to hear this with all the strength these words can carry. You cannot enter a new season carrying the weight of the previous season. It is not weakness to let go. It is wisdom. It is the decision to not let what happened in the past steal what is reserved for the future. And you know what happens when you choose to truly let go. Not just with words, but with the heart. Not just in prayer, but in the practical decision to stop reliving what has already passed. A space opens up. A space that was occupied by pain, by resentment, by that narrative you told yourself every time you tried to move forward. And it is in that empty space that new things can enter. God does not put new things into a container full of old things. Letting go is not losing. Letting go is making room for what is coming. I'm going to talk to you about identity now, because one of the greatest spiritual battles that exist is not about circumstance. It's about who you believe you are. In Judges chapter 6, there is a scene that is one of the most powerful in the entire Bible. A man named Gideon is hiding in a winepress, threshing wheat in secret so his enemies wouldn't find him. He is a man of fear, of hiding, of survival. And the angel of the Lord appears to him and says, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Gideon, mighty warrior, hiding in a hole. The angel didn't call Gideon by what he was being, he called him by what he was destined to become. And it wasn't flattery, it wasn't motivation, it was a prophetic declaration of real identity. Someone has been calling you by the wrong name for too long. The voice of family that said you wouldn't go far. The voice of failure that shouted so loud you started to believe it. The voice of relationships that diminished you until you accepted a size smaller than yours. But there is a voice, older, deeper, and more real than all of those. It is the voice that knew you before you were formed in the womb. It is the voice that engraved a purpose in your spirit before you even knew your own name. And this voice is not saying maybe. It is not saying one day. It is saying now. It is saying you. It is saying that what was promised was not cancelled, it was kept. I want you to do something right now while you're still watching. Put your hand on your chest for a second. Feel your heart beating. That beat is not automatic in an empty sense. It is sustained by a decision that is renewed every second. The decision that you still have purpose here. While this heart beats, the story is not over. While this heart beats, the promise is alive. While this heart beats, there is time for what was promised to be fulfilled. You are alive. That is not a detail. That is a declaration. I want to talk about time now, specifically about God's time, because this is one of the greatest sources of anguish for those who are waiting. In biblical Hebrew, there are two words for time. Chronos is chronological time, the clock, the calendar, the passing days, the accumulating years. Kairos is the time of opportunity, the right moment, the point of convergence when everything aligns for something specific to happen. You have been living in Chronos, counting the days, watching the years, calculating how much longer it will take. But God operates in Kairos, and in Kairos, one moment can recover years. One door opened at the right time can compensate for decades of waiting. One connection at the right moment can change the trajectory of an entire lineage. Joseph spent 13 years as a slave and prisoner in Egypt, 13 years of Chronos. And when the Kairos arrived, in a single day, he went from prison to palace. In a single day. What Chronos couldn't accomplish in 13 years, Kairos did in 24 hours. You are measuring your delay in Chronos. God is preparing your moment in Kairos. And when the Kairos arrives, you will look back and understand that every day of waiting was a detail being put in place so that specific moment could happen exactly the right way. But I need to tell you something about Kairos that many people don't share. It is recognized, not just received. This means that when your moment comes, it won't come with a written sign. It will come as an opportunity that requires discernment to be seen, as a conversation that could seem casual, but that you need to recognize as divine, as an idea that could seem like yours but comes from another place. That is why the work you do now, in the silence, in the waiting, in the preparation, is not lost time. It is the training of your discernment so that when Kairos appears, you don't let it pass. Now, I'm going to give you something practical. Because spirituality without practice is like a map without legs. It shows you where to go, but it doesn't get you there. There are 3 postures you need to assume now to receive what is coming. The first is the posture of radical gratitude. Not the gratitude of pretending everything is fine when it's not. The gratitude that recognizes that even in the middle of the struggle, there is evidence of God's faithfulness in your life. Think of 3 things you have today that you prayed for at some point in the past. 3 things that have already been answered. When you anchor your faith in previous answers, you build a foundation of trust that discouragement cannot tear down. Neuroscience confirms this. Studies from the University of California showed that practicing deliberate gratitude for 21 consecutive days literally reconfigures the brain's reward circuits, measurably increasing dopamine and serotonin levels. What science discovered recently, the Bible commanded to practice millennia ago. Give thanks in all circumstances. The second posture is the declaration of identity. Every day, before leaving home or starting work, you need to remind yourself of who you are. Not what happened to you, not what they said about you, who you are. Child of the living God, bearer of a purpose that does not depend on human validation, built to go through what you are going through without being destroyed by it. This is not superficial self-help. It is spiritual alignment. When your identity is anchored in what God says about you, circumstances lose the power to define you. The third posture is the action of faith. One action, no matter how small, that corresponds to what you believe is coming. If you believe a business is coming, do some research, write down an idea, talk to someone about your dream. If you believe a healthy relationship is on the way, work on your emotional health, come out of isolation, allow new connections. If you believe healing is coming, make the appointment, start the habit, make the decision you've been postponing. Faith without works is dead, not because God needs proof that you believe, but because physical action opens a spiritual channel. It is your spirit saying to the universe, I am ready to receive. I need to talk about a specific enemy now, an enemy responsible for more lost destinies than anything else. This enemy is called comparison. In today's world, with social media omnipresent, this enemy has gained power it never had before. You wake up, and in 30 seconds, you've already seen the apparent lives of 50 people who seem to be ahead of you. Marriages that seem perfect, businesses that seem prosperous, bodies that seem ideal, children who seem fulfilled. And the poison of comparison doesn't kill all at once. It paralyzes. It makes you spend emotional energy measuring your path by someone else's pace, when every life has its own time, every purpose its own route, every destiny its own speed. Abraham received the promise of a son at 75. Moses began the greatest work of his life at 80. Hannah prayed for decades before holding Samuel in her arms. If they had compared their own time with the time of others around them, they would have given up before the fulfillment. Your moment is not late compared to anyone else's. It is exactly on time, advancing at the pace your specific story requires. Stop looking to the side, look forward, look up. That is where your answer is. And there's one more thing about comparison that needs to be said. It not only paralyzes, it distorts. When you spend too much time measuring your life by the lives of others, you start to want their destiny instead of your own. And then you waste energy praying for a life that wasn't designed for you, chasing a dream that isn't yours, building a future that will feel empty even when it arrives because it was never what your spirit truly wanted. Your dream, the real one, the one deep down before any external influence, that is the only one that will satisfy you when it is fulfilled, because it was sewn into your interior with precision. It has your shape, it has your fingerprint. No one else can live it for you, and you cannot live anyone else's. With the same fullness, return to yours. Return to your prayer. Return to your purpose. That is where your peace is. We have reached a point in this video where I need to ask you something directly. What are you waiting for that only God can do? Not what you want in terms of a promotion or extra money. What you carry in the depths of your heart that seems too big for logic, too impossible for human effort, too distant for your history. That request you keep because you're ashamed to say it out loud because it seems presumptuous or naive. That dream you buried because life taught you it was too big for someone like you. I need you to know something. The greatness of your request is not an offense to God. It is an honor. Because a father is not diminished when his child asks big. He is invoked. And what was placed inside you as a desire did not arrive by accident. Deep desires are divine invitations. They are the map of your purpose written in the language of your heart. God does not plant something in your interior that he does not intend to water. The dream that doesn't die, even after everything that tried to kill it, is the dream that has its root in something eternal. And an eternal root is not uprooted by temporary winds. We are nearing the end, and I want you to leave here with something you can carry. The pull you felt when clicking this video was real. What you are experiencing in your spirit at this moment is real. It is not emotion generated by background music or elaborate rhetoric. It is your spirit responding to a truth it already knew and needed to hear again out loud. You have not been forgotten. The delay was not punishment. The waiting was not waste. Every tear you cried in silence was seen. Every prayer you murmured in the early hours was heard. Every time you chose to continue when you had every right to stop, it was recorded. And now, something is moving. Not in the distant future, now. In this specific season of your life, forces are being aligned, doors are being prepared, the right people are being positioned, and what was being formed in slow motion is about to appear at a speed that will surprise you. The Sarah from Atlanta I told you about at the beginning wasn't special in the sense of being chosen above other people. She was chosen in the same sense that you were chosen, for having made it this far without letting go of faith, for having continued even when it made no sense to continue. And you continue. You are here, you are listening, you are feeling. That already says everything about who you are. Let me tell you one last thing before we finish. There is a moment in the life of every person who has been chosen for something great when they need to make a decision. Not a decision about circumstances, not a logistical decision, a decision of the soul, the decision to believe again, to let go of the armor that disappointment built around the heart, to allow hope, that fragile yet indestructible thing, to once again occupy the space that pain took. This decision is not naivety, it is courage. It is probably the most difficult act of courage that exists, because hope that has been frustrated once has a cost. It costs the vulnerability of exposing yourself again. It costs admitting that you still want. It costs the humility of saying you haven't given up, but I assure you, whoever made it this far into this video did not get here by accident. You didn't watch all of this for pure entertainment. Something in you was hungry for this word. And now that it has arrived, the decision is yours. Will you allow it to truly land? Will you let what was said here today move from the level of the rational down to the level of the spirit, where things really change? That is my last question for you today. And the answer is not for me, it is for you yourself. Before we close, I want to give you a simple task. Today, before you sleep, write somewhere, on paper, on your phone, wherever you prefer, a sentence. A single sentence that begins like this: I believe God is preparing me for. Complete it with what is in the depths of your heart. Not what seems reasonable, what is real. And keep that paper, keep that note, because in a while you will look at it and understand everything that today still seems confusing. The promise did not die. It was being prepared. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming, with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.